Okay, time being 7 o'clock, I'd like to call to order the Somersworth Historic Meeting for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. And I'd like to start off the meeting with welcoming our newest member, Howard Merrick, to the board. And could we also, first order of business is the approval of minutes of previous meetings. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion. Approve.
Okay, that's for our November 26th regular meeting, by the way. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. And one abstention. All right, so the motion passes 6-0 with one abstention. Projects of minimal impact. Ms. Mears?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no report this month for projects of minimal impact.
All right. Next order of business is public comments by visitors. Basic general comments that wouldn't be concerning one of the applications tonight. If there's any general public comments that anyone would like to make, that'd be the time to do it. If you're here to speak for one of the applications, we'll have a moment for that during that particular application. Seeing none, old business. Do we have any old business before the board?
I'm not aware.
Seeing none, moving on to new business. The first order of business is Somersworth Housing Authority is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to install vinyl siding on a property located at 1 Market Street in the Business with Historic Overlay District, Assessors Map 11, Lot 96, HDC Case Number 53, 2024. Ms. Mears, do you have anything for this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to replace the cedar clapboard siding and wooden trim with vinyl siding and clapboard pattern with smooth surface finish. They did bring a sample, I believe, tonight for the meeting. And trim and fascia are proposed to be AZAC vinyl trim or similar. This is a New England framed mill in wood clapboard. The integrity is excellent integrity due to compatible rehabilitation. And there's a number of applications that have come before the Historic District that are included in the staff memo. And this application is ready for the board to review.
Do we have an applicant here to present?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Evans. I'm with Somersworth Housing Authority, and I thank you again for placing us on your agenda tonight. We appreciate your time. I would just like to take a quick moment, and as I am taking this young lady around with me, I will be retiring in May from the Housing Authority after 40 years at the Housing Authority, but I would like to introduce the commission members to the incoming Executive Director, Michelle Massey. So I wanted to introduce you. Okay, and so what we've done is, as Ms. Mears says, is put the application in for the Queensbury Mill apartment building, 1 Market Street. We've painted and now we're considering vinyl siding. So with me tonight, I would like to introduce our engineer architect, Jerry Wiebolt, and Frank Consemi, thank you, from Right Track Design in Goffstown, New Hampshire. They're very well versed in the building and assisted in putting the application together, and they would be instrumental with any questions that you might have.
All right, do you want to give a brief presentation on it, and then we'll open it up to any abutters' comments or general?
See the materials?
If you just want to run through the brief summary of it, we'll get into questions after we allow the public to speak on it as well.
So we've gone through the building, and we've looked around, and we've noticed a lot of the window sills, window trim, fascia, and corner boards were all exhibiting signs of rot and wear, as well as some areas of the siding that are dry rotting and wearing as well. The Is that the first one, or the east? That's the small side. So I believe you have a copy of this in your packet. So if you look at the east elevation, or the west and east elevation, notice some close-ups of around where the, especially. Oh, this microphone's off. All right. Testing? Okay, great. You'll notice on the east and west elevation sides, there are some areas, like around this area right here, that there is some dry rot on some of the siding, especially up at the top. There's some siding that has been unpainted for a period of a couple years and is starting to dry rot due to UV exposure. On the north elevation, that's the side with the door. Many of the windows and the window trim, not the windows themselves, the window trim and the window sills have exhibited a lot of rot due to, deterioration of the wood. I have added some close-ups towards the bottom. And then on the south elevation, there is also some, mostly confined to this area over here. There's a lot of rot on the window trim as well. And so we are proposing to replace the trim with a PVC trim, either by AZEK or Wolf trim. It will match the existing dimensions of the trim. It is a 5/4. And then for the siding, we will be requesting to replace the siding with a 4.5-inch cedar Dutch lap. No, not Dutch lap. Clapboard siding in a wood grain finish.
We ended up reviewing the building. We ended up reviewing the building, and after close proximities of review of the siding, the trim, we will be matching it 1-for-1 in vinyl. The siding is right now a 4.5-inch exposure, and we are going with a Certainteed Restoration Classic shingle that has the 4.5-inch exposure. And that's a double 4.5. And again, we have a presentation that we can hand around. You can look at it and feel it. And then, as Frank also mentioned, the PVC trim, we selected smooth only because from a distance it looks smooth no matter what you end up with. But they also make a wood-grained PVC looking material. And again, it would be 5/4 by the thickness or the width that we would be looking for. And their width varies all over the building, from the trim around the windows to the corner board to the fascia board. It's all different sizes. And PVC, as you are well aware, I'm sure, comes in all different sizes. And we would be going with a rabbited edge material. Wolf makes one, and or you can get a sheet good of AZEK, and a carpenter can route the edge. It's important to note too, we will have no J-trim at all on the project. I, for one, am not a fan of it, so it won't be on my projects. So anyway, we're trying to match it 1-for-1 in size and texture, but paint and materials texture kind of fades away a little bit, and it almost looks smooth after a while anyway. So that's kind of the presentation in a nutshell. And we do have, like I said, materials that we can hand around if you'd like to feel them or look at them.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll just have you sit down for a minute, see if we have any public comment that wants to speak towards this application, and then,
Can we have the material passed around first so we can look at it?
yeah, actually, if you want to pass that around, we can have that in the meantime.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. And do we have anyone from the public that would like to speak to this application for or against? All right. Well, seeing none, I guess come right back up to the board and we'll go on with questions. Do we have any questions by the board, from the board? Ms. Shawn?
Sorry, we don't have control over color, but I think you can.
We don't have control over color, but is it going to be brown, or are you going to keep I mean, that's a pretty distinctive mill in town. Are you keeping the yellow, or are you going brown? Or are you going to a different color?
We'd like to try to keep it as close to the original as possible.
Good, so you can get the siding in yellow or
So if
something
you
similar.
look at the materials that are passed around, there is a row for the 4.5-inch clapboard with the cedar, and all the colors are shown on there. The yellow is not actually available in the 4.5-inch cedar, but the next up would be kind of more of like a light tan.
It is also noted when you see the presentation that if we were, I'm sorry.
There, you use that. Turn it on.
It's noted on the presentation that if we go with the double 4, which is also like a double 4.5, but changed by 1/2 inch, the double 4 is available in a lot of colors, which is pretty much their standard, and it is available in that yellow.
Yes.
Ms. Newen?
Can you just give me a little bit of an explanation of why you are choosing to go with vinyl instead of replacing or repairing the wood that's there?
Yes, I can answer to that. 10 years ago, we had the building painted, just 10 years ago, entirely painted, trim and wallboard, clapboard. And we're looking for more of a permanent solution so that we're not back here in 10 years. We went out to bid for painting, and we were quite amazed at what the results were for painting. So that's what kind of led us down this road to go vinyl permanent versus looking at 10 years of painting at $100,000 for a paint job. So that's why we ended up here.
Sorry, follow-up question, just what's the warranty or lifespan on the vinyl siding?
Well, as you probably have heard the saying, vinyl is final. Vinyl is pretty well, it'll be around for a while. The buildings usually fall around the vinyl, but vinyl is pretty much foolproof. As the PVC trim has come to age, that stuff is really good stuff. Of course, you can actually paint it if you want. Typically, people leave it white just because it's white and why mess with it. But the PVC trim is really good stuff. It doesn't rot, as well as vinyl doesn't rot, and it doesn't peel.
Ms. Berry?
I have no problem using an AZAC trim for the window sill areas and different things that you're finding rot on. My biggest concern is this is a very large building. You currently have historic clapboard. That is part of the reason it has an excellent integrity rating currently with it. My biggest concern is I understand vinyl has that reputation, vinyl is final, but I will very much disagree with that because I've seen my parents alone had a house built 10 years ago and it's cracked. There's multiple places that vinyl is broken. It's caused leakage in other areas. Putting vinyl on top of clapboard creates other problems with moisture, getting behind if it's not done right. You're also on a waterway, which, can cause other areas, especially if it's not done correctly or something lifts. do you happen to have any, I know you talked about the windowsills and the surrounds and the fascia, but is there actually any clapboard that is rotting, or do you have a percentage of the building that the clapboard has failed, anything of that sort?
No percentage other than to note that the clapboards are peeling. The paint is peeling on the clapboards, which is typical of paint or stain anyway.
Right.
And also to reiterate the installation of the vinyl, we would be stripping the existing sheathing or siding off, leaving the sheathing in place, placing an air barrier on top of that, and then placing the vinyl on top of the air barrier.
Sorry, follow-up question. So you
And
would be removing all of the clapboard, which is
Correct.
a very significant cost to do as well.
Correct, yes.
Is that at the recommendation of the person installing the vinyl?
What you end up having if you don't replace or remove the siding is you end up with a fairly substantial distance that you then have to build the windows out for, because you want the trim to be proud of the siding and not vice versa, where the siding sticks out beyond the trim face. So if you left the siding in place, the new siding would be out farther than the trim of the windows that are existing.
Okay. And because it sounds like you're redoing most of the trim, was there, again, a reason for added to remove the clapboard instead of build out the windows if you're redoing? It sounds like most of them already because they're rotted and have issues. So I'm just curious where the thought process kind of went there. So
The trim is being removed because it is rotted. Yes.
but I guess my question kind of goes like, you have the opportunity, since you're replacing it anyway, to accommodate to leave the clapboard and put the vinyl on top of it, since you're already going to be building out a little bit? Or
We would be replacing the existing trim on the windows with like size trim. So we would not be building the trim around the windows out.
okay,
The profile would stay the same.
Okay.
Around the windows. And also the certain teak siding is really the thickest on the market. It's 044, which is a very thick siding. Of course, when it's below zero and you throw a snowball at it or something, it will crack. But we're hoping nobody's throwing snowballs at the building. But yes, but it doesn't necessarily crack on its own.
the reason I'm asking.
Suggesting your parents have something inferior.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. Don't worry. I know there's a whole bunch of variations between quality of product, what you go with, and everything else. So I like hearing that you're looking at that as well. I'm used to, with a project this size, that usually the determination to go with an all-new product and to remove the product that's there, it's usually like a 60% failure rate or whatever it is. But it sounds like it's mostly the cost of scraping, painting, and upkeep at this point. It's not that the current stuff is failing. It's just more the cost of upkeep at this time? Okay.
Mr. Pullman?
What about the sills on here? You gonna cut the sills out?
We would probably replace the sills with a sill extender. We would cut the sills back and go back with a sill extender piece, of which the Wolf product line that we sent around, they do have sill extenders that stick on the end of a windowsill on the exterior.
Something you might do or you intend to do?
We would do that.
The only problem I have with this is I put siding on for a few years, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't put it on my house. This building is so large that this is going to buckle. If you ever gone up to Rochester and see the mill they did up there and go down there in the summertime, it's just like this. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen here. Don't know, but that would be my guess.
Well, if I could address that,
Sure.
it's typically and I'm not
I know the
Between finger-
nailing technique. and
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
I
exactly.
get it.
You leave a space.
That's a pretty large building to
Yes.
check every nail in it.
Yeah, the installer is not supposed to nail them hard to the
Uh,
material.
It only takes one.
Yeah, and I agree,
Yeah,
100%, yes.
thank you.
Mr. Mativia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the elephant in the room, realistically, is the fact that this is right at our gateway. When you cross from Maine into New Hampshire, it's the most prominent, large wood-framed mill building that is there. It's a prominent part of the downtown. And if in part of your historic survey, the integrity, which was read originally by Mrs. Mears here, that it has excellent integrity due to the compatible rehabilitation. And I'm hesitant to want to lose that compatibility. And for evidence of not wanting to lose that compatibility, from last month's meeting, I had there some of the same type of similar applications. One was from 85 Elm Street, which has wood clapboard siding, and their integrity is excellent due to the large part of its design and representation. The next issue, the next applicant was for Highland Street, and their integrity was only fair due to the application of vinyl siding and loss of trim. Another property that was up on Beacon Street, their survey integrity, poor integrity due to the application of vinyl siding and loss of trim. To have such a significant property downtown in the historic district, to the next survey read poor integrity because of the lack of, because of the application of vinyl siding and loss of trim, I'm not in favor of really to have that integrity lost. So that's my spiel. I think your presentation is well and well thought out. I appreciate the fact that your intention is to not use J-channel, and I would agree with the architect that J-channel is the worst part of the vinyl siding, and there's many ways now to cover that end as they hit corners. But right now, this building has a excellent integrity versus the ones that were excellent, and now they are no longer excellent because of the application of vinyl. And I think that if this was to be applied, that integrity classification would then be on this building. So that's all I have to say.
Just, I have a couple questions of my own. It sounds like all the trim you're matching exactly the same size as what exists now, with the PVC trim boards and so on, including any profile shapes you would match as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I do have to agree, I'm slightly concerned that we would lose the integrity that this building has preserved over the years. It is definitely a standout building in the downtown. It does, you know, it's very a prominent position with that. Driving by, and I pass by this, I don't live far from it, so I see it almost I do see it every day. I look out my back window and I can see it, really. So I see sides of it that other people don't. And looking at it now, I'm amazed that it's as poor as condition as you describe it. I'm sure there are places that are rotted and so on. I guess I'm wondering, is there any way you could repair part of it with the PVC as needed? And, for the trim sense, because I'll be honest, as far as the trim goes, I understand replacing rotted wood with something that's going to last a longer time frame. I have no problem with that sort of material. I think it's a wise choice. The clapboards, it's hard to believe they're in that hard a shape looking at the building when I drive by. I'm not saying there isn't areas that might need attention and need to be replaced. Like you said, the ones that are unpainted, I'm sure those are rotted. They're probably out of my view. I can't see it. But would there be a way to piecemeal in some of the clapboards rather than doing the entire building?
Well, of course you like for an answer. I'm not used to this. Of course, that is a possibility, and I think the concern is from the Housing Authority is the need to continue 5, 7, 10 years down the road to then look and paint it again. The concern is it doesn't hold paint as well, and the vinyl seems to be the lesser of the two evils, given the fact that it's just a large expense to paint the building. And of course, there is the taking the PVC and just doing the trim. But I think if you're just doing the trim, you wouldn't route it to receive future vinyl should down the road the next executive director may want to suggest it does need to be vinyl. We'd have to strip off that trim to route it to receive siding. Because again, the last thing that any of us want to see is J-trim. So it's kind of like while you're there, take care of it. And that's also the whole crutch to painting the building. As you know, it's a very large structure, as everyone has pointed out, and it's going to take staging or a very good sized lift to do it. And once the staging's in place, you try and take care of everything you can.
And can I just add in how we actually came to this point is back in 2022, the building, as all our buildings get inspected by HUD every 1 to 3 years. In 22, they cited us for this rot on these sills. And that was kind of the catalyst of, all right, we need to do something to be proactive to bring this building into now and many future years. So we were just thinking that just to get it into the future, cost-wise, and trying to make the siding permanent so that we don't have to keep painting. But so that's why we're here, is we were cited by HUD, and then New Hampshire Housing Authority also cited us for this rot on the windowsills. So.
Ms. Nguyen?
I just want to look carefully at the standards, the guidelines. Just remind us all that, and I'm sure you've read these and you're familiar with them, but that the obviously the use of vinyl and plastic and aluminum are strongly discouraged unless it can be demonstrated their use is historically consistent with the architecture of the building. I don't think we've passed, but we know that we do frequently allow vinyl siding, and there are exceptions in the regulations for that. However, I'm concerned this building is of such significance and integrity that it's not like a typical house where we would allow that change. And I also have noted most of the time the homeowners, it's reversible. They're leaving the existing materials in place so that it could be reversed. But what you're describing is not reversible. And also when vinyl siding is allowed, there are several caveats to that. One, you've matched the exposure of the pre-existing clapboards, that's good, but it does say wooden corner boards are to remain on the building. Soffit and window trim are to remain wood. All ornate wood details are to be on the building are to be maintained. I think there's a logical exception that's often granted for sills, because sills we know rot, and we know that this stuff will last and be there, right? It doesn't look the same as wood on a building. It's surprisingly flat, and it just doesn't look the same. It looks good, it looks trim and neat, I'll give you that, but it's different. So I just wanted to share those concerns with, to remind everybody of what the regulations are and how I think this should be considered more carefully than a typical single-family home or small structure. Yeah.
Mr. Mativia?
Thank you, and she stole a little bit of my thunder. I was going to read the exact same language. It also states in our standards of review under renovations that rehabilitation work shall not destroy the distinguishing qualities or character of the architectural features, and alterations should be held to a minimum. The alterations and architectural features should be repaired rather than replaced wherever possible. In the event replacement is necessary, the new materials should match. This feature that this language speaks about, this architectural feature, is the same architectural significance that I spoke of earlier, which they go hand in hand. I'm not going to think that the building is in great shape and that it most likely does need some care and preservation. I'm probably not in favor of replacement to vinyl. And in order to preserve and not sort of break an annual budget, perhaps, and you know, if it were to be repaired and then repainted in stages, like you paint this piece and then a year later you paint and keep going around the building, I suppose. It's not my decision. It will be a lot of money to paint this building. I get it. A lot of money to repair it. More than likely, it'll cost just as much to vinyl side it, but you got to repaint it more often than you do replace the siding. I understand the argument. Our charge here is to preserve historical integrity. That's what this board tries to hear and tries to support, and that's what we sit here for. And in focusing on what we're here for, I probably not in support of changing this clapboards to vinyl. I would entertain the trim replacement. They look identical. Until you cut into it, you can't tell the difference. When they're in good quality, if a freshly painted piece of wood trim is next to a piece of painted AZAC, for example, you have to scratch it to tell the difference. That's not true with the siding. So I'm not in favor of the vinyl replacing the clapboards. Thank you.
Mr. Poole?
When I said I used to put vinyl siding on, that was probably 50 years ago, so I'm a little bit out of it here with this Cortex plugs. How's that work?
The Cortex plugs the Cortex plugs are used on the PVC trim, and the fasteners that's used, of course, goes into a solid surface.
Right.
And then if you've seen the newer fasteners, they actually have a reverse thread on them that takes the material inside of the fastener with it, and then it leaves about 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch indent. You put the fastener in far enough, and then the plug is applied over top of the fastener.
Is it an oval plug or a flat plug?
It's an oval plug,
Right.
a round plug. Round.
Well,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry, round.
It covers the screw.
Okay. Well, I figured that, but I mean, I want to know, is it got a little bevel to it on the
No,
top?
it is completely flat.
Okay.
Usually what the guys will do is they'll put it in far enough with their thumb and then tack it with a hammer, and then that leaves it a flush finish. It covers the head and the hole left by the fastener.
Thank you.
Ms. Berry?
I think I kind of already said this, that I would have no problem with the AZAC trim or for the sills or anything else that's rotted. For me specifically, the vinyl siding is a hard sell because it's not in poor condition. It's a very large building. I understand the argument of, oh, you're going to be up there with scaffolding, save that expense, do it while you're there. But I don't think I could allow, at least with my vote, to remove something that's actually in really good condition at this time. I think, kind of going back to some regulations that were read, if you could tell me 80% of it's rotted, it's poor condition, you can't get anybody out there to repair it, different arguments of that sort, I would possibly entertain the vinyl a little bit more, but I'd also encourage to find a different product that maybe installs similar to a clapboard where it's not in sheets with multiple layers. I can appreciate that you did look into find one that was almost identical and exact, but for me right now, I definitely can appreciate some repairs need to be done and that this is a large building, but I have a hard time wanting something to be removed that's in good condition at this time. So just wanted to let you know that's kind of where I'm standing at the moment.
Ms. Schoen?
I'm in the same boat. I'm listening to all this, and I respect that you want to have a building that lasts forever. This is housing for people who really need housing in our community, and it's really important that we maintain that housing. I know that the folks who are living there really need the space, but literally you drive across the bridge and this is the first thing you see. And I've never seen vinyl that's going to give you the look that this building has. I agree that I'm fine with the trim replacement. I think you can make that look fine. I can't see voting for vinyl. I'm sorry, guys. I recognize that this is important, and I recognize the difference in cost, but I can't see myself voting for vinyl on this building. It's just too much of an important feature for our community.
I'll just weigh in and say I do agree that the vinyl, it always ends up looking wavy. I understand the application matters on this, and I have a hard time looking at a building or picking out a building that I've seen that's been vinyl, converted to vinyl, that doesn't have a wavy appearance to it that just screams, this is vinyl now. So it does significantly change, and on this building this size, it stands out. Again, I have no problem with the vinyl or the PVC trim. There's a lot of products out there that, fall right in and you can't tell the difference, like many people here have said. I think my hang-up, again, is the vinyl application on a building this size, this prominent, in what appears to the majority of it be in good shape otherwise, for vinyl, for the actual siding itself. Any other, Ms. Berry?
I will make a motion unless there's more comments or...
Do we have any more comments, questions? Ms. Nguyen?
Since a lot of people have been talking about being okay with the PVC trim, I'm just curious what people's feelings are if that's painted. So if it's white, first of all, color isn't in our purview, but if it is painted a dark color, and would you repaint that on a regular schedule to keep so otherwise you'd have kind of the white showing through, or you're going to just change the color scheme of the building, which is totally up to you if you were to do that. Just wondering if anybody has any thoughts about painting PVC trim, and if you like that idea or don't like that idea in this instance.
Mr. Matevia?
I have some familiarity with the outcome of painting the PVC trim. It holds paint very well, mostly because the PVC doesn't absorb the moisture like a clapboard or the wood product would, and that's what really causes the paint to peel the most of the time. It's that moisture that eventually gets into the wood, pushes the paint off. Of course, acid rain and time and eventual wearing will diminish that paint, but peeling paint is moisture in the wood that's pushing it off. A painted PVC would last quite a while. Eventually it would begin to be beaten by rain off of it, and it would have to be then repainted. But I would assume if they were to propose to alter their application to keep the wood clapboard, change it to PVC trim, and then paint the clapboard and paint the trim, by the time more paint needed to be added to the clapboard, they would be probably one more cycle away from needing to paint the trim. So probably not the first cycle of repainting, but probably by the second cycle. But that'd be a decision of aesthetics by the time they get there. But paint holds very well to the PVC.
Just to weigh in on that, I mean, I know currently we have trim and siding that's the same color. It's really the masonry that's a different color on the building. Looking back at the historical photo here, we've got a different color masonry. I don't think it would really alter the building if it was painted differently. And again, we don't have any purview over the actual color. So, you know, people really can choose to paint the paint scheme, whatever color they want, whatever trim, siding mix of colors they want, you know, as long as it's done in an orderly, typical, proper fashion, not like polka dotted or something. We do have an ordinance against that sort of thing. But, you know, I guess I would be okay with it not being painted. I could go either way. I mean, if they wanted to paint it, that'd be fine. But I really don't feel that that's our purview to decide whether it gets painted or not, if it's really up to them.
If PVC trim is chose not to be painted, it stays white until it just gets dirty. It needs to be washed. I mean, it's super durable as is, so, yeah.
I was just going to make a comment. I mean, we could ask it to be painted, but normally when we start asking for painting of products, it's because it's a wood. And as you guys have seen, right, if it's not covered with a protective barrier of paint or stain of some type, it's going to fail. Like you said, some of these weren't painted and they were left to the elements, which is why they're rotting. So in this, it's not going to do that. So I guess I would be fine either way. The only thing I would say specifically is most of the time the AZAC I've seen is not shiny. I would just say if it ended up being a shiny one, I would want to see more of a flat paint used on it just so it more blends with what you're putting it again with. But that would be my only thought around that.
So I just have a question. So I'm hearing what you're saying. You're not in favor of the vinyl for the clapboards. But if we were to step back and revisit this for just replacing the trim, I'm hearing that the AZAC or PVC or whatever it's called is not a hurt item. Would we have to alter our application and come back for
Not
this? Or can this be
necessarily.
decided tonight
So
that would be acceptable?
we can do this a couple different ways. We can either table it and let you make adjustments to it and come back with whatever changes you would like to present that way. We could vote on it tonight, possibly with amendments. You could offer some suggestions to change it tonight, and we could possibly approve those as well. So there's several different routes here you could go. I'm certainly willing to, let you have your choice on how you'd prefer to go, or
Okay.
if you'd like us to make a vote, we can do that as well.
You could
Okay.
also take some time to go talk about it if you wanted to. We could probably move you down to the bottom and have you come back. I don't think that would be a problem
Yeah.
tonight if you wanted to go chat with people.
There was a motion I was going to make, and I can let you know where that was headed. And then you can say, okay, we would rather table, or it's up to you. But my motion mostly would be that we would allow you to replace trim as needed, the fascia boards, the things that you were saying were rotted with the AZAC material, but any clapboard siding would need to be replaced in kind at this time, and no vinyl siding would be the motion I would be putting forward if I put it out there. So.
Okay.
I think.
So with that, if you want to, like I said, we can only table it if you agree to it. So it's almost, your choice on the tabling. But at the same time, if you want us to move forward with an actual vote, we can do that. Certainly willing to listen to what you'd like to do.
Okay. No, thank you for explaining the process. This is my first time in front of the commission. I think what we'd like to do is just take a step back because it is not solely my decision. The Queensberry Mill Apartments has a board of directors that I need to bring this to, so they have the ultimate decision. So I will bring it back to them and see what comes of that decision and then reapproach for either another application or alter our application.
If we table it, this application would still stand. You can make any adjustments to it before the deadline for the next meeting and simply show up at the next meeting as old business on this same application,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
Right, I agree.
I had a question in reference to the motion that Ms. Berry was suggesting. You had said, as needed, could we replace all trim?
So you were saying all window trim at this time to
All trim, all
if you're going to do it, you would do it all.
all corner boards, yes.
All everything that's not siding.
All everything is not siding.
What was your? And I understand this could be a guesstimate. How much is rotted at this time out of everything? Like, is it like half the building kind of rotted? Where
A lot of sills that are
A lot
rotted.
of sills, and then there's a lot of just window trim on the lower section of the window.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'd like to hear maybe more board members weigh in on it, just
So
because
what is
for
happening?
similarity and to do it, if you're going to do it, I'm all for keeping it consistent.
So what is happening is the trim up the side of the jams, it's wicking up because that's where the water would
It's getting
sit,
into the wood.
and the wood is rotting from the bottom up.
Right.
So that's why I would like to suggest we replace all trim.
Okay. I'd be curious what my other board members would think before I'd move forward with all at this moment, but
I would say if you tabled it, you go back and get a Plan B, and we could do the same thing then. If you have a Plan B and you want to change it, do something different.
Okay, so I guess, is it my time to ask that this be tabled, or is that a decision that you make? or-
Let us just weigh in on this topic, and then we'll let you.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and I would agree. I don't have a problem with all of the trim because, you know, I know that the sills are very prone to rot, and like you said, they wick up through the side trims. So, you know, it's 3 of the 4 boards you see that already are probably rotting on most of the windows. So I can certainly appreciate that, and I don't believe I'd have a problem with replacing all the trim. It just makes it more durable in the long run. And, you know, again, replacing the trim, you can't tell the difference. It's not like the siding going from clapboard to vinyl where you see much bigger difference. And we'll just continue on with this.
So if I may help the discussion, I believe the applicant, or at least the architect, was suggesting that the siding, for the wood clapboard, would be repaired in kind and replaced as necessary to make that happen, but it would stay. And all trim, window trim, fascia, corner boards, anything that's not siding, with the exception of the brick, would be replaced with AZAC. Is that kind of what I got out of that?
Yes.
So then the applicant's representative, if they wanted to, and agreed to that piece, and wanted us to vote on that now, we could do that. If you're uncomfortable with that and still want to talk to your board members, you would then ask us to have this tabled.
Michelle, did you want to first?
There's just one comment. These approvals are good for 1 year once it gets approved, so I just want you to be aware of that for your timeline.
And my kind of was like, if we did vote on that, if you still want to go back to your board and they're not in favor, you don't have to action if this gets approved in that way. And then you could resubmit or alterations and come back. That doesn't stop you from making changes. It could stop you from not having to move forward, though.
Okay, great. Thank you again for educating me. I appreciate it. The year is great. And so I know that there's a time frame, and so I would ask then the commission perhaps take a vote to alter our application for just the trim, as you stated. Replace the trim and not the clapboards
So
for tonight.
as Tim described, a potential motion, if that was the one put forward and approved tonight, you'd be okay with that. You could take it back to your board, and obviously if they're okay with it, everything moves forward, you can continue on. And if not, you can always come back with it would be a whole new application at that point. But if you need to make changes, you could come back next month or whatever time frame you can get in the application to make alterations if for some reason they didn't approve our approval if it so passed.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I'd be in favor of that, a
Okay.
decision tonight.
I still have a motion ready then. I have a motion to accept application with conditions. Condition is that clapboard siding is to remain with repairs as needed in kind. All trim on the building can be replaced with AZAC that was presented.
Tim's gonna.
Friendly amendment to the motion? AZAC or similar? Because there are other products, but they do the same thing.
That's fine,
Is it
but
fair to just say PVC?
PVC is fine.
that's fine alteration.
I'll second the motion.
Do I need to reread the motion, or was it clear enough for everybody?
Good.
Good.
So, any discussion on the motion? Okay, so all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your retirement, Deb.
Kind of scary.
Who's counting? Exactly, Tim.
All right. Next order of business is Shane Short is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to replace a side entry staircase on a property located at 10 Prospect Street in the historic moderate density district, Assessors Map 11, Lot 80, HDC case number 1, 2025. Must be Shane. How are you? Welcome.
10
We have two.
We do actually have two.
Yeah, we're
Do you want me to
doing
just
together.
It's a side entrance.
We doing the side
So-
entrance first or the front entrance first?
So obviously this is two applications on the same property, so I'm just going to read in the second one and we'll discuss both with you at the same time. So also new business under C, Shane Short is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to replace a front entry staircase on a property located at 10 Prospect Street in the historic moderate density district, Assessors Map 11, Lot 80, HDC case number 2, 2025. And Ms. Mears, do you have a little background?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to remove existing side entrance and rebuild the structure with pressure-treated wood. The integrity of this property is excellent integrity. Altered porch and aluminum storms detract. And the other section of this application, the applicant is proposing to remove existing front staircase and rebuild the structure in the same footprint with pressure-treated wood and original aesthetic wood accents to be reused.
All right. Sorry, Shane, if you'd like to just give us a brief summary or
Right now,
any other
currently,
additional
the
information?
stairs are deteriorating. The stringers themselves are all rotting. It has 25 on center spacing for the stringers. It has Trex for the treads, and they are sagging immensely. So that's on both. That is also front and back. So they need to be replaced due to the rot.
just
Did you say 25 on center?
There's 3 stringers in the back. It is 54 in width. Yeah, well,
let me just ask if there's any other public comment that wants to be made. Do we have anyone else here that would like to speak for or against this application? Okay, seeing none, we'll just keep you right up here. Do we have any questions from the board? Mr. Mativia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To look at, well, the HCC case 2 versus 1, the photo that's in the packet, and I'll help you out with this, shows that staircase.
That is from the side on the right, yep.
And that's the side on the right. Do you have any idea if that's original to the structure?
I don't believe it is.
Is there enough clearance from that structure? And it's hard to tell from that photo. Because this is bad. I'm just saying. And I'm asking that only because in order to make it, if there's some history on this staircase at this location, in this fashion, in this method, in this width with that railing, then it can stay. It won't be replaced, but look just like this again, with the baluster spaces, with there's no railing on one side, there ought to be, and that kind of thing. The other thing of it is the storm door that's at the top, does that leads to a porch?
Yes.
So more than likely, once upon a time, that wall with the storm door wasn't even there. And those stairs led to the end of a porch.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, a wall was added to enclose the porch, and then a storm door aided in that enclosure. And the reason why I'm pointing all this out is to bring this back to some sort of original nature, and if this is the original shape and historically accurate, then you can keep it as part of what's called the existing code. But these are far from code compliant in today's world in this method. So there's a balance that we have where if you have the distance that they could protrude, there really should be a landing at the top of these stairs. There isn't one because the porch was the landing once upon a time. Then it was closed off, making a bad staircase worse. The railings certainly don't appear to have any strength. You lean on those and it looks like they would topple. There's not even a railing on the other side. And seeing that the number is right there in the front of the house, that actually faces the street, correct? So if those stairs were to be extended 3 feet, would they be in the city right away at that point?
I would have to measure. There is a landing. There's 2 staircases in the front. I have photos if you'd like to see them on my phone. Or I should
We
have it.
probably have them. So it looks like one of the staircases could make it, but again, historic nature of this property, I don't have any. It would be hard for us to make you do anything else besides replace dimensionally like this. The distance of the span of those stringers is certainly why the Trex decking didn't work, because it's way overspanned for that product. And I'm bringing all this up because the intent of your application is to not put a landing, to not change the geometry or shape of this at all. And I don't think the building official here could make you do otherwise unless you chose to.
I wasn't sure who had precedence over deciding if a landing was necessary or not.
We're never going to know if this is how it was.
Yeah.
So we have to assume that's how it was. And in today's world, none of this works. It's no landing at the top of the stairs, but again, the landing was the porch once upon a time. The railings are terribly inadequate. They could be modified, but you're under really no obligation to make that geometry change. If it's existing, you want to match it, you can match it. Certainly needs to be rebuilt. So I would be in favor of the application as submitted, with the exception of the railing that, as presented in this sketch, doesn't really mimic that. There's no balusters. You have here on this drawing, there's a center column post. Originally, there was not. So my question then, after I've made this long-winded, whatever we call this, is that your intent to build exactly that,
I forgot to add balusters to that drawing.
or mimic that, but just better?
I could mimic that. I did the center support for more bracing because the span is over 6 feet. I figured it'd be good to have.
So we need to know what you're gonna do. That's kind of where I'm leading to.
Okay.
So if you wanted to make the landing or change the railing or add balusters, that needs to be clear.
Okay.
So, any rebuttal to that statement?
I could modify the submitted drawing if that would help. What do you mean by, like, you need to know what I intend to do?
Yeah,
Tear it down.
that's what we're here to hear.
Okay.
What's the end game is what? Yeah.
My name is Carrie Zabladel. I work with Shane on a daily basis. We both co-own the company who's going to be doing the work. The intent of this is to get it as historically accurate as possible. We want to exactly replace the same footprint and the same design, which means for the baluster, we would be adding in the railings to make it match aesthetically. If you notice on the side of those staircases as well, there's actual wooden accents on one side of it. If you're looking at it, it's on the left-hand side. We are intending to reuse those, so those aesthetic accents are also being replaced, reused on the same thing. They're not rotted enough to
Are
throw
you
them
referring
away.
to the red?
Yes, thank you.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yes, the red. We will be adding a trim piece to the top. The top of those pieces of wood is rotted, so we'll just be adding a wood trim to kind of hide the rotted on the top of those, but the aesthetic will stay the same. That's really the only difference we're doing with the intents to rebuild. We're also moving away from Trex because we do want to kind of move backwards a little bit and actually make it a little bit more historic and be able to use the wood, pressure-treated wood, so it will last and it can be stained or painted however it may be down the road. But that would be the intent.
Mr. Poulin?
Hi. My question, I guess, is the rises, you're gonna put baseboards back on there? You're not just gonna leave it open, right?
Correct.
And you're talking about all pressure treated, you realize that will have to be painted?
Yep.
Okay. I love this house. I absolutely love this house, so I hope it comes out good for you.
Ms. Berry?
You actually kind of got to my question before I got to ask it. I was going to ask you specifically about the red decorative boards and to hear that you're going to keep them, reuse them. I'm assuming if there's not enough, you'll recreate where needed. Honestly, that would be the only part that I'm most concerned about because I think it was noted in your application, there's really not that much decorative on these particular stairs and the railing. I agree with Tim that, yes, I want to see balusters on the railing. Other than that, because I know there was a metal one on one of the stairs, not in favor of that since it is on the front of the house. It's a beautiful house. It has great integrity. So I'm okay with what's proposed here as long as those accents are staying.
All right, I'll just weigh in. I appreciate that you're trying to keep this original as possible. I guess the railing, just understanding, will they be turned balusters, square ones? Do you have any idea on what they would look
Try to
like?
match the aesthetic that's there currently.
So they'd be square like they are now? And the stairs otherwise are going to be the same dimension, same rise and run, as they call it?
No, the rise and run of the stairs currently are out of spec. They're at 8.5 rise and I believe like 8-inch run, something along that line.
So are you going to be changing that? Okay, so that would actually move the bottom step out closer. You'd maybe lose that landing, so to speak, that's between the granite steps and this.
Yes.
Okay, which I'm okay with that because I understand it makes them a little safer. I believe you could certainly build the same exact dimensions, but I don't have a problem with them being
I could compare
change.
with notes to find out how far it's going to go out if you'd like.
The only thought to that is that would also change your angle for the accent boards on the side.
Yeah.
So would you be then creating more to keep that appearance?
That's a good point.
There's a couple of options, and I mean, you guys can weigh in as to what you would prefer. We can either recreate some as needed, or we can add a wood accent trim on the very bottom corner of it. So it just looks like it blends in with a regular trim around the staircase. It wouldn't be anything too crazy. It would just be a little corner trim at the bottom of the stairs that would be able to kind of fill the gap as needed.
Or we could also go with a wider piece of trim to cover up more than was covered previously to try to make up for that angle change.
So I guess the way I'm envisioning it is if you just did a wider trim, it would actually have to kind of taper to take up the space to match, because you're going to have a different angle. If you look at the red panels that are there now, when you extend the stairs, that trim board to cover would actually have to get wider as it went down, if I'm picturing that correctly.
I think yeah.
So would it be possible to just recreate those accent panels in the same style and just, you might have to add 2 or 3, I don't know how many exactly, depending on how much the angle changes.
We could make a template and then build some, yes. Would there be a preference of what material we would use for that? I would like to stick with like a 1x PT if possible.
No, I don't see a problem with that. You'd be painting it afterwards, obviously, so it would just help prolong the life of expectancy. Being pressure treated and painted only helps that much more. So I don't, personally, as one person voting, I don't see a problem with that. But if there's any other questions, or Mr. Mativia?
Finally discovered, I thought I saw this photo earlier, but it's this particular close-up of that same staircase,
That's the front staircase.
of the railing that I was discussing. And that bottom piece is known as a shoe rail, which is not antiquated in the least. So this style of railing is much more modern than at first I had thought. So I'd be open to, or at least entertain your ideas of what you'd like to put there. That side rail, where it looks like some 2x were stuck on the side or something.
Yeah, that's
So that's the back set of
Yeah,
stairs.
Yeah.
it's all junk,
right.
basically. The railings are junk. And there's no historical value to any of that now that I've seen that close up. I'd be open to what
Yeah, me too.
do you think you'd like to do in your best case scenario for the railings?
If I could, I'd do two rail off the post and then have 32-inch angled balusters on the end of 45s. And then maybe like a 1x6 to cap it.
Pressure treated material, or
Absolutely, yeah.
and your railing height would be what?
32,
Off of the nosing of the stairs?
correct.
Could you make that at least 34?
Absolutely.
If that's an amendment to your application, I'd entertain that.
I would second that. I think
These railings are bad.
I feel like that whole staircase can just go, and you could create something beautiful that matches the house.
Yeah,
I'd like to see what you have for creative ideas.
right.
You know,
The reason why I said, the railings should be between 34 and 38 off the nosing. Historically, old buildings don't do that because it wasn't a necessity. And to be honest, people were shorter. In 1883, I think your building has a date on it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there's a reason why those those railings need to be of a certain height now. I'm not asking you to do the landing and the top of the stairs. It would be beneficial for the staircase, but not for the structure's historic value. Fantastic that you're keeping that ornate lattice. I think that's very awesome character. And please never come before us to vinyl side this building.
The answer will be no.
Noted.
This is a special property, and it needs care, but it needs to be safe. So the railings and stairs are not. So if that's your friendly amendment to your application for the railings, I would be in favor of that.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd just like to note, most of this discussion's been on the front. I know you showed a picture of the rear, which is even less material to it. Yeah. So just for clarification, is the rear going to be constructed differently than the front?
Yes, the rear right now, the stringers are hooked on a 4x8 beam and secured to the side of the joist underneath. There's about 2 inches of meat on the stringer on the smallest end you could with the stair tread itself. That one also has only 3 stringers and about 25-inch spacing for the stringers, also Trex, and they're in bad shape. There's some that are sistered onto each other in order to keep the stringers together. I think it's the best way to put it.
So you're proposing rebuild them more in code
Yes. Yeah.
structurally,
Yes.
but not with the additional lattice underneath?
There's no lattice there currently. If you'd like to have lattice added, again, I can grab a template and we can add that to it.
Yeah. Mr. Barry?
Well, I was just going to make a note that's the back of the building. It's not within view from the public domain. I wouldn't want to add trim where there wasn't necessarily trim to begin with. That's where we start getting into adding false details. I would be more in favor of keeping it pretty basic back there.
Yep. And I was going to say, I agree the same thing. It's hard to see because it's on the back side, you know. It doesn't have it currently, so I would not be opposed to that being left open if that was the choice. But keeping the front more in character with the recreation elements, I like that idea myself. Mr. Mativia?
Yeah, the lattice work to continue to go around that porch, I mean, if that's your desire, speak up, but it's not, I'm not going to say you have to do that. If you want to, let us know, but that's not a requirement. I would just that if that railing, even in the rear, if it is to be replaced, it is going to be the same method and same product and the same look as the one that's going to be replaced out front. So the building matches.
Yep.
So.
Just real quick, I know you're not the owners, but this is a old pictures in the survey, and if you would like to pass that on, and it might be helpful as you work on this project as well.
Do we have any further questions or comments or motions? Mr. Mativia?
I'd like to make a motion that the application passes as presented with the amendment that the railings shall be replaced with a pressure-treated railing that has a height of at least 34 inches, and the balusters be no greater than 4 inches apart, and that railing system meet what current code would represent.
Question on
That
that?
same is true with all the railings, if you had to.
Are we doing this for both applications? One?
It's-
Sorry, I just need
You
clarification.
know, I kind of commingled all my photos, so I'm not.
Because we've read
That's an
both.
excellent question.
Can we combine the two and just call them, or do they have to be totally separate?
We would have to make that as a motion and vote on allowing that.
I make a motion, we combine the two since we've had a discussion about all of them and it makes more sense to make one big ruling rather than separate ones.
Will that work for you, Ms. Mears?
Yes, that is fine.
We're trying to just streamline this a little bit for you guys.
Appreciate it.
So your application will be as presented with the railings being...
Well, we got to vote on combining the two?
Yes, all those in favor, yeah.
So first, the motion to combine the two into one application has been seconded by Ms. Schoen. All those in favor of that, raise your right hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? So that passes 7-0. All right, so now
So back to the motion.
to the motion.
Okay,
Now-
so now we're talking about both projects. At the same time, they're very similar, so my motion is as mentioned, and I'll repeat if necessary.
If you don't mind, I think
don't
have it,
mind
but this will
that-
just let me double check it.
Yep. That the application be approved as presented with the condition that the railings be replaced with pressure-treated railings of a code-compliant nature and geometry. That'd be better than me keep talking. And the balusters be of no greater than 4 inches apart. And that would be true for all stairs that are part of this application. The new concrete pad as well, approved as submitted in that part of that application.
And I originally put 34 inches high on the railing. Does that still work?
Anywhere between 34 and 38 to be code-compliant. Yep.
I'll second.
I think you could just say at least to cover.
Can't be greater than 38.
I'll second the motion.
Quick question for the motion before we move forward with the vote. Tim, did you want to add anything around that decorative trim?
The decorative trim, if it gets, yes, okay, let's continue then. Any decorative trim that needs to be repaired or replaced be done in kind. It is not required for you to extend that trim if you don't, we're not requiring you that, do that. And part of the staircase has one side with no railings. That side with no railings shall have a railing.
And painted.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
And shall be painted within 6 months. To color of your choice.
We don't have purview over color, but my sense is you're going to do something that. Yeah.
Sure.
Stripes,
Painted within, did you say 6 months?
6 months.
Okay, so I have, the motion is to approve as presented with the railing replaced with pressure treated at least 34 inches high and balusters no more than 4 inches apart. Any decorative trim be recreated in like style with pressure treated. All wood will be painted within 6 months. And installed on both sides. Any questions on the motion? And you did second it?
Mm-hmm.
So any
I did
discussion
second.
on the motion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with the property. It's beautiful.
Appreciate it.
All right. Next order of business, we have Peter Merrill is seeking a certificate of appropriateness to install a door on a property located at 82-2 High Street in the Business with Historic Overlay District, Assessors Map 11, Lot 217, HDC Case Number 3, 2025. Ms. Mears?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing to install a new door to be located between the two existing doors. The door will have brick trim to match existing doors. The door will be located on the High Street front of the building. The applicant has provided a sample of the proposed door within the application. And integrity, this building is of fair integrity, diminished by replacement windows and doors and incompatible storefront alterations.
All right. Do we have an applicant here? How you doing? Can you just give us a state your name and just give us a brief overview of the
Yeah,
project?
it's Peter Merrill.
Mhm.
And over here, he wants to split 82-1 and 82-2 to make two separate offices. So what I'm proposing to do is add a door in between the two that are existing now, and have it all, basically, it all be exactly the same as what's on both sides of it. I think you have a picture of the front of the building. I have a picture of it with the door in it.
Is that basically a summary, or do you have additional to just mention? Okay. Do we have any I just want to check to see if we have any public that want to speak. Do we have any public that would like to speak for or against this? No. Seeing none, we'll continue on with questions. Ms. Berry?
So from what you just passed around, and I'm waiting for the rest of the board to see it, you're going to not make the door any higher, and you're going to have that pocket of wood above that door to match what's there currently. What are you doing about the step up? It looks like those are granite step ups to the door. I don't have the right terminology right now.
Oh, on the threshold, it'll be
Yes.
exactly the same.
So you'll be putting a granite step
Yep.
there.
I believe that. I don't know if that's.
It could be cement, honestly, I can't tell.
Yep.
So whatever the material is currently, you will
Yes.
match in kind? Okay. I'm very appreciative that you're using the three structures and going where it's spacing wise. I'm in favor of that, but that was it.
Just a quick question. Looking at the property, you said you're separating it from another one? So,
I don't have the picture of it, but there's glass doors just to the left of that
yep,
door on the left. There's a big glass door. There's a huge open room in that side, but they're dividing it to have one set of offices on one side and one set of offices on the other.
okay,
So
so,
instead of going through the glass doors through one office to go into the other, they want to do a door adjacent to it so that it goes into the separate room.
yeah, so looking at the entire building, it almost looks like three storefronts of varying differences, if you will. You get the glass front ones on the left,
And then it's
the
apartment
brick
doors.
ones. Yeah, there's a door that goes up in the,
Two of them do.
okay. And then the white clapboard storefront, that's a separate property, or is that part of the same property? To the right of the doors that would,
I think that's
That
a
one's
separate
separate.
okay.
property. That's poppy seed.
Yeah, so you're just looking to basically create an additional office downstairs. This isn't anything to do with the upstairs?
No,
just-
no, just
okay.
for the for that
okay, just-
street level.
Just to
Yep.
try and wrap my
Yep.
head around the whole layout of the building as well. So there's no additional windows, this is gonna
Nope.
be simply a door
Just a
into an
door.
office? And the door is gonna match the existing door that's,
Yep,
currently
each
there.
one that's on each side of that,
Mhm.
it will match identical to them too.
and both those doors are identical?
Yep.
The tree branch is in the way, I can't
Yeah,
see the little
yeah.
half-round
Yeah,
window
the
on the
tops
left
are,
one,
both of
so,
them are exactly the same.
Mr. Poole?
The window you have in the package the door you have in the package has no window in it.
It won't, that wasn't supposed to be in there. It's gonna be a solid steel
All
door.
right, just
Yep.
check.
Yep.
We have any, Mr. Mativia?
Your specifications that you supplied with the application describes clearly that there's a rough opening and a certain dimension on that rough opening, yet the picture you provided us shows a lot taller rough opening because the door to the left and the right originally had a transom which was infilled with some panel, and you are proposing to mimic the transom location as well?
Yes, because I wanted to keep all three.
So the opening you're cutting is all the way to the lintel.
Correct.
What's the lintel made out of?
I'm not 100% sure.
Is it steel? I mean,
believe it is. But
that
I-
band that goes across the top of the doors, it's not uncommon to be steel. I'm asking you if it's steel.
I believe it is.
And your new opening will go all the way to the underside of that lintel, identically to the one that we can clearly see on the picture that you provided.
Yes.
Just in the packet.
Yep.
Or the other one, it doesn't matter. Right, so it looks like you really took that picture and cut out the one on the right, and stuck it on the middle for our to
your-
see it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna mimic that identically. So the picture that you created to match identically does not show a step up from the curb, from the sidewalk.
Okay, well, I didn't carry that over.
So we want to be clear, though, your intent is to create that step up to look exactly to the opening itself, all of that face experience, all of that looking at the building, that hole looks exactly like that hole, looks exactly like that hole.
Correct.
Tim, not to interrupt, but I did ask that question.
I know, I just want to make sure he's aware, because what he handed out was.
Right, it didn't. That part didn't copy over.
Right. No further questions.
Anybody else? Questions? Comments? Motions?
I make a motion that I make a motion we approve this with very clear specific that the door that goes in between those three panels that are right now look like a solid wall, and that it is exactly like the other doors that are there, to include if that is a granite step, because it looks like a granite step to me, a granite step up of the same height, that there will be no apparent difference. It will also have the fake panel transom because we don't have an actual transom there anymore, that it will be identical so that looking at that, it will look like three identical doors, including the granite step up and including the same exact door with the lights in the door, which are not shown on the door that was provided. The door that was provided was a solid door, but the door that will be put in will have the same half lights that the door that already is there has.
Is that a second? All right, any discussion on the motion? Ms. Nguyen?
Sorry, the motion came a little sooner than I was expecting. I just, would it be possible to put the new door all the way to the left of, basically just to the right of the door on the left side?
What do you mean?
Instead of placing it in the middle of the facade, if that whole facade between the two existing doors is part of one building, those three windows and the one yellow door that's there now.
I did it so it was all equal all the way across the front of the building.
Right. I'm wondering if this building is basically divided into three storefronts, and if you put the door all the way on the left side, it would balance that storefront would have a door on either side of it instead of.
Yeah, but I can't do that because inside there's a wall there.
Okay, that's what I wanted
Yep.
to know. Thank you.
I know what you're saying now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so the motion would stand as
Yes.
presented. Oh, okay. Give me a minute just to write this down so that I get it right, and I'll repeat it.
Quick question, not around this, so please continue. Were you the same builder that was going to do the dormer on this? Just curious, when is that going to be starting, or is that going to be
I
starting?
heard her say it's good for a year, so I'll probably be back for another approval.
Okay, so it lapsed and you have to come back. Okay,
I'm pretty sure.
okay. Just checking on that.
So So I'm putting installed door will match existing doors on either side with step of like kind material and matching transom.
Yep.
Does that work for the motion?
I would say step of fake transom, step of identical material.
Of like kind. I take that as identical. Does that work? And matching transom.
And the door to be the same doors that are already there with the lights. I don't want a different door.
And matching
Door, matching exterior door to doors that are already there.
matching door light. Does that work? Or door
say half moon with matching
With-
panel
with matching
configuration.
half circle window work? All right, so with that motion, any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
I,
All those opposed? Motion passes and you'll be granted that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right, do we have any other new business coming before the board tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to workshop business. Do we have any workshop business? Ms. Berry?
Good news. I will be picking up another plaque representation with the changes. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get there last week. That is on me completely, but I am picking it up Friday. So I will be scheduling another workshop to look at it, to move forward. I do know other people in our district are eager to start applying for application or these plaques. So I'm hopeful we will move forward very soon.
Any other workshop?
I don't necessarily know if it goes under workshop, but I will bring it here. In our, I know Tim and Richard are aware of this, that we had a discussion at the advisory committee, and it was possibly suggested that the HDC might want to do a post-mortem of some of the projects as we go through them to look at what went good, what went bad, things that maybe we need to be aware of maybe updating our ordinances around those kind of conversations and discussions. I think we should possibly put a workshop together to have that internal conversation with this board of maybe that's something we want to put in our guidelines to do on maybe not a yearly, maybe it's a every other year, quarter, like every three, and just to say, let's look at what's gone good, what's gone bad. Are there things, loopholes in our ordinances that we can fill in? So I wanted to just put that out there because that was something that did come up, and I thought it was actually a really great idea.
That was the lady from, I forgot her name already. I'm horrible with
Brandy.
names. Yes, from the
State Historic Preservation
Office. Actually recommended that, especially with 85 Elm Street, because we know that was a lot of discussion in various ways with that. And I think that if I do like this idea, I think we should put a subcommittee, I guess we'd call it, for this, or, unless we would do it at the advisory.
I think it wouldn't be a subcommittee because that's its own, but I think
As a
it
full
would just
board,
be a
then.
workshop for the HDC if we want to adopt it outside of that. Sorry, hands are going everywhere. At least that's my thought around that it would be a workshop, just like when we revise our ordinances or look at our regulations.
Yeah, no, I'd be in favor of that, and I think that if there's any other projects where people think, where any of us think that we could have made improvement or done better, that it's
Winter
worth
Street.
discussing that as well. So should we schedule this now for a future meeting date? Ms. Mears?
I was going to bring this up under communications, but we did receive the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources Certified Local Government Grant to have the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions come in and hold a camp, which is Commissions Assistance and Mentoring Program. This is experts within the preservation field, and one of the topics that we could work on as a commission is design review exercise, This is an interactive exercise, provides an opportunity for participants to practice design review with a simplified application and set of design guidelines. Participants will determine what questions they would want to ask the applicant and explore a potential motion appropriate for both seasoned professionals and new commissioners. This session will provide opportunities for participants to learn from each other in a lively and fun format. The objectives of this are to recognize the roles and objectives of the players in the design review process, commissioners, property owner, staff members of the public, and design professionals, articulate appropriate and defensible design review, response, and conformance with established guidelines. So they would look at our guidelines and make sure that they're in line. Recognize that a number of design solutions may be possible within the design standards and guidelines, and develop confidence in future decision making. So that's one of the topics that we can explore. I was going to send out a survey of the different topics that we could have to the board to try and get some consensus of. We can choose up to 4 topics. Alternative materials topic I think would be a really good session, especially with the changing climate. There's a lot of new information about alternative materials, and infill development is another session. So I was going to send out this information. We do need to try and finalize a date for this. Usually camp comes in on a Friday or a Saturday, so we're hoping to do this in June. I don't know what the commission members think about this. Other historic district would be brought into the conversation, so within the state of New Hampshire. So you could have people from Durham, Portsmouth that attend this camp. So we're looking at Friday, June 6th, Saturday, June 7th, Friday, June 13th, or Saturday, June 14th. And it would be an all-day event with 4 different topic areas.
I would avoid the 14th. I think that's Children's Festival.
Okay, that's good to know.
Right? It's either that weekend or the weekend after, and you don't want to be. A lot of us double dip and help with that.
I'd be in favor for a Saturday date, but otherwise.
I can
You're gonna send those out so we can,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to answer you without,
looking at it.
yeah.
Children's Festival will be the 21st this year. It's not on Father's Day.
Okay, good to know. That's what I was actually just looking at my calendar to try and figure out.
So I'm very excited about this, and I think it will be a really good opportunity for the commission. And I'm grateful that we got the grant from the Certified Local Government program.
So with that knowledge, I would say maybe we should hold scheduling a workshop on it until maybe after. But again, I don't know if the board feels like we should jump in first and then wait, or.
I think we should do it after. I agree. We should get the training and try and sort it back out.
Okay. So you'll email those out to all of us so we can see the choices and as well as the date to try to schedule a date. Just curious to rule out a couple dates. Obviously, we'd rule out the 21st if that's the Children's Festival. And does anybody have any opinion on being a Friday or Saturday?
I'd be curious if they saw better attendance one way or another, because I feel like Saturdays you could get people, right? Or Fridays you take off for work. I don't know which one's better, to be honest with you.
I can ask them.
And
Ugh. Okay, rub it in.
my opinion, Saturday works better for me.
Yeah, same.
Just-
Yeah.
Because then it's not a day I normally work,
Yeah.
but of course
I
my
don't-
schedule's not the same as everybody
I
else's.
don't know
So
that people would want to be taking work off. I mean, I think if you're going to get more people who can come in on a Saturday than on Friday.
Just curious.
Yes.
Some of us are
Some
not
of us
retired.
really work though. Like some of us,
the
some
only
of us
day I
have
can make
dates
it
that
is
we
the
can't just say we're not going to show up for too.
I actually would not be opposed to that. I'm not saying don't send out an email, but I feel like the sooner in the summer versus the later, you're more apt to get more attendance also. But that's my opinion.
Agreed. Before school's out, if you got people who have kids.
Yeah, I'm
So it-
probably out the 7th through the 22nd. Kind of a big trip planned. But I could work around it, I guess.
So
if I
you'll
had
send
to.
that out as a poll kind of thing?
Yeah, we'll send it out as like a survey or a poll.
Okay.
And the only reason why we didn't choose May was because we usually have the land use dinner. So we could potentially go at the end of May. The grant has to be, this has to be spent by June 30th, though.
So give all possible dates. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say May, June. I think April's right around the corner. That might be a little tight. But until we've decided on stuff that they have to make sure of everything too, so.
Any other communications or miscellaneous?
Could I just bring something up? Tim, I didn't say anything earlier, but are you familiar with these Cortex plugs that these guys were talking about tonight?
About the product?
The Cortex plugs that they're putting.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Now, do they have a, like weather-wise, they get cold, the summer
It's
get warm?
realistically, it's made out of the product that you're drilling through. So it's just,
Oh, wow,
it's
would
like,
it expand at all and?
no, it's a, no, the drill that's supplied with the product screws are minusculely smaller than the plug, so there is some resistance to installing it. So you push it in with the strength of your finger, and you finish it off with a tap with a unwaffled headed hammer, and it fits out flush.
Okay.
Like you would plug an AZEC deck.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
I just wondered if they expand and freeze.
No more than the rest of the
Oh.
product does with it. So no, I'm not familiar with them falling out.
Thank you. I didn't know. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Berry?
Well, since the museum director is not going to mention it, I was going to say I was very happy to be locked out of the museum during one of the lectures because I arrived late, but I'm looking forward to when they reschedule for a second of that lecture, and I hope more people will show up to the second one, even though it was filmed.
Yeah, I heard it was well attended and very well received.
We couldn't fit any more people in. We were at maximum. And if you showed up late, it's not because you were late. It's because we were packed. But we will be doing it again. And the next time we do it, we're going to kind of have tickets. The tickets will be free. But we need to know how many to keep a count at 60.
That's
So
great.
Yeah.
So there's an attendance limit. Sign up early.
Yeah. It's just that all we have is 60 chairs in there, and that's pushing it now, so. But it was very
Not a
good.
bad problem to have.
In June, what's this, February, February, I believe it's 13th, the second Wednesday of the month, where we are doing one on genealogy. We have a genealogist coming in. If anybody's interested in doing genealogy, he'll give you an idea how to get started on it, so. And that's free, too.
Good to know. Anything else? Mr. Mativia?
Any updates on the atrocious lighting we have downtown?
I think Shane sent out a notice of violation.
To both parties?
Yes.
We're talking Borderline and Villa.
Yep.
Yeah.
Borderline.
Borderline's with the spotlights and Villa with the red light district downtown.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor of motion to adjourn? Raise your right hand. Opposed? We are adjourned.